Magdalene's blog 27. I awoke in the early light of morning, wondering for a few moments where I was and why there was pain in my left side, until I started to remember my heart's ache of the night before lying down on these sacks. The grief had gone now, and I remembered something of what it might have been, that the glory of the stars, the sky, the night, seemed to be saying that something great was happening. But I felt I wasn't a part of it, could never be worthy of reaching there. This morning I vowed to redouble my efforts, and watching and recording the movements of the stars is one of the new duties I am to be learning. First there is the background of the fixed wheel of stars that turn around the Hearth Star in the north. Then there are the planets, the heavenly seats of certain gods and goddesses, together with the earth, moon and sun. Of course I knew something of the movements of our own Venus, how sometimes she was the evening star and sometimes the morning star. A change from one to the other I had already witnessed without realizing it. Now I was to start being one of the recorders of the way all of the planets came and went, sometimes combining with each other and sometimes not, in a wide dance of heavenly influences. How these influences were lined up was of importance to more people than just the rich women of Antioch, planning their love affairs or the marriages of their children. Even the military generals took an interest, coming to Bilal for monthly or even weekly reports. When Astle had been working in the temple, library priests from many places would come to consult with her. Ariane kept up the tradition and herself was preparing to make a journey to Egypt, a return visit to Alexandria and Heliopolis. I would miss her, but was not allowed to go with her, there being too much training for me to undergo. Of course, there was still the ongoing business of being a temple courtesan, based on the reported liking of the great god, Baal Zeus, to wander on earth in human form. We priestesses were required to be ready to treat any stranger as though he might be that god. In reality, this custom grew into a very profitable business for the temple, both as an income and as an influence, particularly with the soldiery of all descriptions and their officers. If we harboured doubts about how we could cope with this aspect of priestesses' work, we needn't have worried unduly. In practice, we were introduced very carefully, but also in a way that brought more business to the temple. Our time as novices at the festivals and our forays to the markets in the city had all been a part of keeping the profile and reputation of the temple fresh and desirable. Now the experienced priestesses made sure that we met with such guests that would suit us. They did this with the help of the door guards, Gaius and Bocca, and in general it was a well-controlled process with little or almost no trouble. The incident with Ayala had been an exception. It seems that she learnt her lesson well, though, and now Ayala had become one of the stalwarts of the shrines, which I suppose did not entirely surprise me. Helena, on the other hand, preferred to tend them as little as possible, and I was somewhere in between. Apollina's still asked after me, but I had managed to miss him so far, Carmel being still eager to take that burden from me, for which I was grateful. It was a situation that we priestesses were becoming well prepared for. The supplicants came, sometimes full of their pride and manhood, but we knew that they really needed someone who could touch more than just their flesh, but who could recognize and understand their need inside. Generally, we could, and we tried as honestly as possible to enrich the lives of our visitors with the womanly gifts the goddess had entrusted to us. Then one day Marcellus came to the shrines, and my world went into a spin. He came on a day that I was serving the goddess there, and he asked for me. Maybe he already knew I would be there, but I don't know how. I was nervous in a way that I'd never been till then. He greeted me just as a friend would, and we went and sat in one of the shrines and talked. I tried to feel how to get where the need he carried must take us, but it seemed to be complicated. We talked about some of the same things we had at Sarita's party, and particularly about Mithras. He went to the Mithras rites regularly and said he would have told me about them if he'd been allowed. Instead, we talked all around the subject, as it was clearly important to him. Redeeming the world, a job he seemed keen to take on within the embrace of Mithraism. I moved over to him, and he flinched as I touched his arm. I could feel a struggle going on inside him, and tried to smooth it out. But something else was working against me. Friendly as he was, I think he was undergoing some private test, which I couldn't help him with. Eventually he left, and all we had done was talk. But he seemed really pleased with this, and let me know that he would be back. When he did, things went very differently.